Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Firm Thinking podcast. When we started the podcast, we said that we were going to have some fun. We were going to talk to some influential people in our community, and we have a really great guest today, one of my closest and dearest friends for a long time, Attorney Jarrett Ferentino.
Michael, thanks for having me today. It's great to be here.
You know, Jarrett, you touch a lot of different aspects of our community. We know each other from school. We went to high school, college, and law school together. So we know each other a long time. We're also products of the Catholic school system.
We were roommates in law school.
We were roommates in law school. So we'll talk about that. I'm sure we'll have some stories that we want to tell. A little bit on Jarrett's background. I don't want to steal his thunder. He can talk about it himself. But probably most known in the community for being involved with the Luzerne County District Attorney's Office. You've been a prosecutor with the District Attorney's Office for quite a long time. You're also the solicitor for the Wyoming Area School District, which, as we talked about on one of our previous podcasts, is a very big deal these days in terms of dealing with coronavirus. I'm sure you're struggling with all those issues as everyone is. You have a lot of diverse and varied interests. You're branching out into television. You've done some work on the ID network. Any true crime fans out there, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you are. You have some experience with that and are kind of branching out. And you have your own podcast that you appear on, and that I was happy to appear on earlier this year, Lawyering Up with our friends Greg Fellerman and Atty Sirimboli.
Yes.
Atty, who was also a member of this firm, and you did it. You worked here. We clerked here. We were law clerks here together when we were in law school.
Another thing we did together.
Yeah.
We worked at Kmart together and a whole lot
That's
of
right.
things. That's
right. I forgot about Kmart
too.
too.
It's an honor to be here. I mean, my association with Hourigan, Kluger, and Quinn was that of an intern in 2002 with you, Michael, and just always enjoyed getting to know the professionals here and your staff, and many of whom are still here today as I was walking in. So
we have a lot of people here for a long time, myself included. I mean, I've been here basically since then. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's start from the beginning. I know there's a lot of interesting stuff in your background that we want to talk about. For the people that are listening, I think one of the things that people are going to have interest in some of the cases that you prosecuted. So if we could talk about that, I'll leave that to your discretion. But you were involved with the prosecution of Hugo Silinsky. That's probably one of the most talked about issues in our community over the course of the past 20 years. Is that something that maybe we can talk about at some point today?
Sure. Wherever we go, it seems to be that people want to talk about the Silinsky case, and for those that remember, and some of you who may be too young to remember, that case began in 2003 with the discovery of several human remains on a property in Kingston Township in the Back Mountain. And this infamous figure came to be known in our community as an accused serial killer at that time. Hugo Silinsky very famously escaped custody from the Luzerne County Prison from the top floor. He was acquitted of murder in March of 2006. I was assigned that case the day of his acquittal, essentially, and I had the case for 9 years with a great team. Prosecuted it with First Assistant DA Sam Sanguidolce, who's also a friend.
Another friend of ours, sure.
And we did that case in March of 2015, secured 2 first-degree convictions against Silinsky, and he was sentenced to 2 life sentences for his crimes.
So obviously that's something that you're really proud of, and rightfully so. I mean, I know that took up a lot of your time. And
9 years it took.
Yeah,
9 years.
And in addition to working in the DA's office, you also have a civil practice. You're a civil lawyer, like us here at HKQ. So maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit in terms of your balance. So we touched on a couple of topics right off the bat, but let's bring it back to the beginning. I want to know, how did you decide to get into the legal profession? Is that something that you knew right from the jump, or is it something that you sort of evolved in? How did that work for you?
Michael, as you know, as a young man, I cared for an elderly uncle that I had. He had suffered from the effects of polio and was left a paraplegic. So through my formative years, I was an advocate for him, something I really enjoyed. Taking care of both his physical needs, he had a lot of challenging conditions, but I really enjoyed advocating for him to make sure he had the benefits he needed. And I liked being a voice for someone who couldn't necessarily do it for themselves. And I looked for a profession that would do that. And how you end up in the legal profession from there is I liked fighting for him, and I love fighting for people that I would say, maybe for lack of a better word, bullies wouldn't expect to have somebody ready to fight for these folks in their corner, and I love being that guy.
Now, when we were at King's, we were in the business school, and you know, when I started, it was something that was in the back of my mind to go to law school, but it wasn't necessarily at the forefront. We were in the business school, and I think that was kind of like a fallback if we did, we would have a workable degree if we weren't able to get into law school. Now, did you? When you're at King's, we're studying business. Were you still thinking law at that point?
Well, if you remember, we parked illegally at the courthouse.
Sure.
So while we were there were oftentimes big trials going on, and I followed them religiously. And I would like to see the DAs going in and out, or the defense attorneys going in and out, or the inmates coming in and out when we were parking to go over to school. In fact, I would hang around there sometimes and go catch a glimpse of some of the trials. For me, that was like going to Yankee Stadium.
Sure.
A lot of guys grow up and want to play third base for the Yankees or the Mets, and I wanted to go there. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be being a part in some form or fashion of those trials. As attractive and impressive as the business world was, it was not calling to me like the ability to be a litigator.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I couldn't really, I just couldn't envision myself doing that. One of the things that I knew was important for me, I think it was important for you, was coming back to northeastern Pennsylvania and making a difference in some way. And I think the legal profession, despite the fact that we're butt of a lot of jokes, at the end of the day, it allows you to do a lot for your community.
We're the butt of a lot of jokes. So, well, that's the other thing,
I've actually never heard a good lawyer.
I heard a couple, but they're not worth repeating.
They're not.
But the other thing, Mike, is we come from large Italian northeastern Pennsylvania families.
Sure.
We went to school, and when we went to law school together, there was always that talk: are you going to Philly or New York? And you and I would basically laugh. I mean, we're going back to Pittston. We're going back to northeastern Pennsylvania, and back home. And the other thing, we were involved in emergency services together. We had a multitude of jobs together. We knew a ton of people, and I love the people of northeastern Pennsylvania. I loved getting to know, the people at Sunshine Market when I worked there. I loved getting to know the people at Seton Catholic when we were there. So as time went on, we built up these groups of people that we came to know. For me, it was going to be an honor to come back and serve them professionally as a lawyer, which I thought was such a noble profession. And let's face it, I looked up to the Joe Quinns of the world. I looked up to the Peter Pawlowszewskis of the world that I grew up reading about.
Right.
And I wanted to join the fray. I wanted in the game, and I thought, what better place to do it than home?
Yeah. I mean, I know that was something that was always important. We had a good group of friends, and most, our group of friends kind of stayed together, and everyone kind of came back here.
Which is rare.
It is rare, and I think that one of the things that, it's probably one of the biggest pet peeves of mine is that when people who are from here go elsewhere and kind of look derisively on those of us who stayed here, and we could have, and there's a lot of people who could have went elsewhere. We could have went to Philly, we could have went to New York, but we made a conscious choice to come back here and try to make a difference. And that's one thing that always bothers me: people who leave and then kind of use NEPA as a punchline. I'm not sure if we want to delve into politics, but in the wake of the last election, and since that time, the last presidential election, and certainly leading up to this time, Pennsylvania has become sort of this petri dish, particularly northeastern Pennsylvania, like we're something to be studied.
Well, I think we are a remarkable people here. I think particularly Luzerne County. We are a greatly informed people. We are a bright people. A lot smarter, street smart and intelligent than people give us credit for. We're not going to fall for the typical, we're going to roll up our sleeves and, the people come first BS that you hear from politicians or business leaders. We hold the people accountable. We have high expectations. Our people are hardworking. So if you could make it here in northeastern Pennsylvania, quite honestly, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's how we always viewed it.
Yeah. Let's just talk quickly, just because it's so unique that we've been able to stay together, through so many different experiences, high school, college, and law school. Let's just talk quickly about our law school experience. I look back at that time fondly. I mean, we had a lot of fun. We shared an apartment together and kind of went through those experiences together. For me, it made law school so much easier. I mean, we both lived at home in college. That was both of our first extended period of time outside the home. I remember we were talking about this before we sat down for the podcast. I can remember distinctly the first weekend that we were down there. We had a pre-assignment in civil procedure, and I remember me and you and our other roommate, who we also went to school with forever, Matt Golden, we were sitting around our dining room table in our place and trying to figure out the assignment, thinking like, what the hell, what are we doing here? Like, is this really what we want to do?
Well, we were contemplating packing up and going home, as I remember. But that was an unfair assignment in our defense. That book. So we got to school, and
I still have it, by the way.
So do I. It's in my office. They give us a book. It's called The Anatomy of a Lawsuit. They said, read this by Monday. It is literally the entire anatomy of a lawsuit, and you would have to be a lawyer in practice 5 years to understand and appreciate everything in that book. We were under the impression we had to know everything by Monday. Yeah. So, in all fairness, it was a legitimate gripe, I think. I
got to tell you, when I started there, I don't know if you felt this way, but I had no idea what it meant to be a lawyer.
No clue. I had no clue. And we found out real fast it was, before you step foot into a courtroom, it's a lot of reading.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, there's some drudgery, but what they tell you in law school is they change the way you think.
Right.
Maybe not what you think, but certainly the way you approach any type of situation, be it a business transaction, a family matter in the legal system, a slip and fall case, a motor vehicle. It changes the way you assess any situation. And I think what comes out of it is you can see things from both sides, and a third side, quite honestly. You have to learn to take your emotion out of things. You have to learn to look at things objectively while appreciating the emotion of people and how they're feeling. The reality is law school prepares you to consider all of that stuff, and in every aspect of the law.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, that way, that sort of intuitive, analytic way to look at problems and solve problems, and that's really what it comes down to. We're trying to solve people's problems. It's applicable to so many different walks of life, and I think it's why we as lawyers are expected to take the roles that we're expected to take in a community. I mean, both of us, we don't just have law practices, we have a lot of other interests that don't necessarily involve the law, but you're expected to be...
Well, I remember there was a man named Donald Taylor who was talking to us that first day, and he said, when you get out, you're going to be asked to be on a board and this and that. And I would think, oh, that's great. I'd love to do all that stuff. And inevitably, you're asked to be on every board. And every time you sit on any board or a part of any organization, no matter what the situation is, they look to you. Because it's easy, number one, they think the lawyer has the answer. Number two, it's easy to blame the lawyer if things go wrong.
Yeah.
Our lawyer told us to do it. But the other thing about law school, too, was you learned a great deal, but you learned more than you realized you were learning. What they were preparing you to do was to be able to hearken back. You didn't walk out of there knowing every aspect of property and contract law. You got out of there knowing basically the pieces of the puzzle and where to look when a problem presents itself. I was amazed 3 years later how much I retained, because like anything else, as you go through it, you're feeling the pain of it, you're feeling the stress of it, but quite honestly, that is a remarkable system, how it's taught, how law students learn the law. It really is.
I know you're going to remember this, but it was like the first week that we were down there, like still kind of in the orientation phase, that guy that we had the shirt on that said, the good lawyer... Good
lawyer knows the law, a great lawyer knows the judge. Isn't that what it said?
he didn't make it through the first week.
He was shown the door in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't think he made it through the week.
And a couple guys and a couple ladies didn't make it, but there were a lot of reasons. I really think that we went to Dickinson Law School, Penn State Dickinson Law School now, and
we were there during 9/11. I'm sure you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Just past the 9/11 anniversary.
Absolutely. But I think that institution was really, they were supportive of law students. They weren't looking to scare people out of the business. I think people realized they had bitten off a little more than they can chew when they got there, or it truly wasn't for them.
Yeah.
So, but we were there. We were together on 9/11. I remember that morning like it was yesterday.
I could too. I honestly could remember. I mean, everybody says that. The people from years ago used to say about the Kennedy assassination, but 9/11 by all means.
You never saw a group of lawyers together that quiet. Everybody was very quiet.
Yeah.
And we were watching everybody together in the cafeteria, and then we were home. and it was just a very sad day, and
Yeah.
it's just certainly unforgettable.
Yeah.
And a game changer for all of us.
I remember that semester. We had a routine every day. We would go our separate ways during the day. Our class schedules were always the same, but we'd always come back.
Yeah,
right on
eat
same
the
dinner.
food your mom sent down at dinner
well, no, I
time.
wasn't going to say that we cooked it. I still,
Yeah.
to this day, I still don't know how to cook. But that was a nice tradition that we had.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, almost like a family. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
hey,
absolutely.
we got to be back 6 o'clock, 5, 6 o'clock. We used to come back at night and have dinner and just kind of BS about the day. I mean, that was, you know, those are the things that you miss. But what's funny is when we were there, I knew that. Like, I was intuitive enough to realize that, like, man,
I
wish
think
we were back.
overall it was a really pleasant experience.
was,
And we made
yeah.
some great friends that are practicing law all over the country, some all over the world. I stay in touch with a lot of them. I've enjoyed watching their success, and you know, I'm married with a family now, watching them branch out and have babies of their own, and you know, become accomplished in the law.
Your son is getting to an age where he might be starting to think about professions and career choices. Would you encourage or discourage him to pursue a legal career?
Well, my little girl's 8. I think she's going to be the lawyer of the family.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
She's sizing up her office in my firm already.
Yeah.
Dominic, my son, is 13. I would never discourage him from doing it, but I think Dominic is a math and science person.
Yeah.
I could see him doing more engineering or something like that. However, not to say that that doesn't have its place in the law. I would never discourage. I enjoy what we do. I love what we do. I could not imagine doing anything else ever.
Yeah.
Till if I'm lucky enough to live till I'm 100 years old, I will be in that office till I'm 100.
Yeah.
My partner Charlie is 83 years old. He's there every day.
If only we can go back. We were talking about that day when we were sitting around the table and just think how like stupid we were being at that time.
But that's another thing. You talk about, like, you know, do you regret anything in your career? Sometimes I regret not taking the time to smell the roses on anything. I mean, everything we do has a stress component to it, because whatever you're handling is the most important thing to that particular person, to a victim of a crime. You know, add to it the media and the public pressure that some of what we do has, and the stakes are pretty high. Mm-hmm. Every now and then you got to sit back and say, this is truly a great experience. We're given the opportunity to help people. Some of the victories in the courtrooms are really, really thrilling.
Yeah,
and you have to take the time to enjoy those things.
I mean, look, and you've accomplished a lot already. I mean, we're almost 20 years in, not quite 20 years into our profession. You know, if you had to close the book on things right now, God forbid, today, I mean, you can look back and you'd be able to write a book. I mean, you've had some pretty interesting experiences. So let's fast forward to that a little bit. You've basically been at the Luzerne County DA's office from the jump, right? I mean,
I've been there 17 years.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Did you kind of envision yourself to become a prosecutor? Is that something you always wanted to do?
Well, like I said, I would watch those cases, and I wanted to be on that side of it. I have a tremendous respect for the public defenders and the defense attorneys in this community. I get along with some of them better than I do with my fellow prosecutors, but. For me, it was on the side of law enforcement. For me, it was on the side of victims. And although I recognize the importance of the Constitution and the rights of defendants, it's certainly an obligation we have. But for me, it was to be a prosecutor. So I got into it 3 weeks into the job. I was at my first murder scene.
Well, let's talk about that, because I'm not sure if people realize how intimately involved the DA's office is. You're right there with the police. So just kind of walk us through that. How does that go? You're home, you're on call. Kind of explain that to people.
Well, Michael, as an EMS person, you know that you get a page, and whenever it is, you got to go. So I'm one of several assistant DAs that prosecutes homicides here in Luzerne County. So if we have a killing within the county limits, I can be called to that killing. I usually get a call from our district attorney.
Are you on call? Like, how does that work?
Well, we have on-call DAs, but there's a certain rotation for homicides.
Yeah.
So our DA, Stephanie Salvantis, would call, and whenever Stephanie calls late at night, you know it's not to check on how you're doing.
Yeah.
She's calling to say that there's been a suspected killing, and we get an address, a brief description, and you go. I have a usually clothes set aside that if I get called out to go, so there's really not much of a delay.
So let me ask you. it's an advantage because you as a lawyer, a case that you ultimately might have to bring before a jury, you're there right from the get-go. You're at the scene. If there's a murder weapon there, you see where it's landed. You see where the body's positioned.
There.
All that sort of stuff. We don't have those advantages typically in the civil world. If someone comes to us with an issue that something's already happened, and we have to kind of reconstruct that, rely on private investigators and so forth. So just kind of take us there with you at a scene. You know, how does that go? How do you navigate that? What are you looking for?
Basically, the first thing you're looking for is the crime tape, so you know where you're going. We go in, we sign a crime log, and you know there could be a helicopter up in the sky. There could be law enforcement all over the place. When I go there, I look for the coroner. I look for the state trooper or lead detective in charge from our office or from the respective department. I am looking with the understanding, and this is what I tell the young ADAs now, I say to them, everything right now is going to end up in a box in your office. So appreciate everything, make sure there's reports, make sure things are getting documented. Certainly don't get in the way of law enforcement, but when you've been doing it long enough and develop relationships with the individuals that do this sort of thing, in the state police, in the larger police departments, you're a part of the shot calling that goes on there. I'm there to discuss whether warrants need to be issued, whether or not certain evidence should or may be collected, and I consult on all those things, and all the while imagining that next step. How, there are times I'm thinking about, I may mention this in my closing. I make a note not to forget how I'm feeling, the raw emotion I'm feeling. You know, my first case was the murder of our Luzerne County Fair Queen, Carrie Martin, who was 18 years old. She was murdered.
The gotcha case.
Yes, in May of 2004. I was called out to that scene. Very young lawyer. You know, they don't teach you in law school how to handle that. She was brutally murdered, stabbed dozens of times in a botched robbery. Truly an innocent victim, had nothing to do with her assailants. Her assailants were Daniel Kukuchka and Joseph Gotcha, both who are now deceased. She was lying in a pool of blood. Nothing prepares you for that. But I would remind myself to calm down, don't forget how you feel right now. And that was the first case I was part of from cradle to the graves, literal graves of our defendants.
Now, I know one of the things that you really pride yourself on, and you've done a really good job with, is your closings. And you know, we could debate the importance of the closing in terms of convincing a jury. I mean, there's so much stuff out there now, so much literature, and there's so many people that study jury attitudes, and I think that's going to become even more important now with coronavirus. I mean, it's going to be hard to sit a jury, panel jury. We'll talk about that in a moment, but let's talk about your process for developing a closing argument. Like, how do you go about doing that? How do you approach that?
When we're selecting a jury, we don't have the jury consultants and that process that you're in the DA's office that you're afforded in the civil realm. So really, you have a very limited amount of information when you're selecting that jury. So you have to become attentive to reading people, looking for certain signs in individuals that would suggest to you that this may be a good juror. This person has a level head. This person appears to be loyal. This person lived in our community for a long time, is raising children, or is a grandparent, worked at a job for 30 years. So those are the folks I'm looking for that are going to see it as we see it. The other thing I do when preparing what comments I'm going to make, your father is one of the smartest people I know. Make sure he sees that. And a philosopher. My mother is also one of the smartest people I know. And I will run a factual situation by my mother, and 9 out of 10 times her initial reaction is spot on. So I somehow work her reaction into what I'm saying, because maybe people wouldn't expect a 30 or 40 something prosecutor to come at this from the perspective of, a woman who's lived a life, raised children and grandchildren and experienced things. So it gives you another perspective.
Yeah, I think that's an issue that you always have to guard against. Even in the civil world, when you're looking at a case, sometimes we get so locked in, like, this is my theory, this is what I'm going to talk about, this is what I think is important, but sometimes you miss the forest through the trees. Right. And it's good to get that outside perspective. Like, did you think about this? Or
and that's the other thing. Like, I'm always looking for quotes and things that, you could be watching a sport or wrestling or something silly, and an announcer makes a statement, and this has happened. makes a statement, and you're like, wow, that's applicable to what I'm doing in this case, and you write it down. I have like a running list of quotes. You find a way to work those in. Really, Michael, what it comes down to is telling stories. I love to tell stories. I love to tell the story and paint a picture for the jury.
Well, I think that's what your jury is expecting.
Right.
That's what they're expecting to hear. And of course, they have all sorts of expectations from what they see on TV.
Well, and that's the other thing. So it begins, when we talk about how important the closing is, but it begins in the opening. And one of the things we try to say in the opening is, first of all, everybody's nervous. Okay, and I'm not letting anybody in on a secret here. The lawyers are nervous.
Sure.
Sometimes they're more nervous than what could be a sociopathic defendant who's not nervous. So
the stakes are so high.
Right. So we come in, and the first thing I try to do is put a jury at ease, and then say, not directly, I am someone who's going to help lead you through what you're nervous about. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to do the following things. And when you show a jury, you commit to them. You promise them you're going to do certain things that you know are going to be meted out in your presentation. If you can come back up to that jury in closing and say, do you remember a week ago or 2 weeks ago when I came up here and I said I was going to show you this, 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 and this? If you can do that, first of all, as you're doing those things, you're building your credibility, the credibility of your side. When you do it in closing, you're just wrapping it up.
Yeah.
They're saying, you know what, Mr. DA, you took me through this stormy situation. I was scared when I got here. I remember you told me you were going to do these things. You did them. What is it you need from me? Now I need you to convict. Because my credibility's here. And not to say defense lawyers can't and don't do the same thing, but oftentimes they overpromise and underperform because something happens unexpected on their side, okay? And then all of a sudden, so that's the thing, you can't overcommit either.
Yeah, and it's credibility.
Right.
You know, I mean, Joe Quinn says this all the time. You're going to give an opening and you're going to promise that you're going to deliver a certain set of, you're going to prove a certain set of facts. You have to make sure you're checking those boxes off, because
absolutely.
The minute you lose credibility with a jury, you're
as we do them, I look over and I just nod yes. Like, remember I told you I was going to,
right.
So there's a little bit of that too, which
and there's some showmanship to it. I mean, they expect that,
and I love that part of it. I love, people will say, there's whatever. There's critics in every walk of life, but I didn't come there to be quiet. I didn't come to the DA's office to be, I always say this. We have some fine attorneys, and over the past 17 years, I've gotten the opportunity to work with great lawyers. And then we have some that are afraid to go to trial, and I think it's like working in a barber shop and you're afraid to cut hair. Not only do you want to cut hair, you want to go a little crazy with it. You want to do some. And I always say to my kids, I say, like, start unknown, leave unforgettable. Mm-hmm. And the only way to do that is to take those high-risk cases, to be, if it requires you to be a little bit of a showman, then so be it. That's what people expect.
You also have to be, we're human. It's natural. We're going to have some reservations. We're going to have some fears. But you have to put that aside. You have to be fearless.
Right.
You have to be willing to take your case into the courtroom. And if you're not willing, and we say that here all the time, and Joe Quinn says all the time, if you're not willing to take that case to trial right at the get-go, right when the case walks in the door, what are you doing? I mean, that's what we're trial lawyers. We have to be willing to go in front of a jury.
How do you expect anybody to believe something you don't believe that strongly? And that's the other thing. There's so much nonverbal. I'll come off of I don't want to let too many of the secrets out, but I'll come off of a sidebar with a judge who tells me I'm nuts or completely wrong for something I just did, and don't do it again. And I'll walk back over by the jury or my team, and I'm nodding yes, like that went our way. And it's complete. At that time, I'm panicking. I'm like, I hope I didn't create a mistrial. But the reality is,
you have to show that confidence.
You have to be confident. The other thing is, you got to know your case inside out. You have to prepare like crazy, which is something we do. Bill Finnegan, who's my law partner, Bill's the king of meetings and preparation meetings, and he taught me that along the way. He's somebody I credit with. Bill taught me to prepare a case, and that's key to the whole thing.
That's a part of the job that I think a lot of people don't appreciate. People think that you go to law school and all of a sudden you're going to just be a successful and wealthy person. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, it's like any other profession. You got to put the work and the effort in, and it's the behind-the-scenes stuff. It's leading up to the courtroom. That's the important stuff. Building your case and getting your experts in line.
We were talking about the Silinsky case. That was 30,000 pages of material,
right.
Hundreds and hundreds of interviews, and
you just have to have a command of it. There's no other way around it. You have to be able to put the work and the effort in.
Where it gets difficult too is when you have multi-jurisdictional investigations, where you have the FBI involved or the state police and a lot of local departments, like the Silinsky case, because it touched on it was a series of somewhat related crimes and then unrelated murders. So you had to figure out, number one, the chronology of all this, number two, how it all fit together. So the lead detective in that was Gary Capitano, Gary is now retired Gary Capitano from the DA's office, but Gary conducted dozens and dozens of interviews. He was also assisted by a larger team and a gentleman by the name of Jerry Sackney from the state police. Sometimes there would be an interview over here from 2004, and the guys doing the interview or the ladies doing the interview in 2008 may not know the significance. Yeah. It's on the lawyer to tie all that together. Yeah. And that's something that was critical in that case.
And it's not easy.
No, it's never.
It's just, there's no substitute though for the time, the preparation, and the hard work. You just have to do it.
These cases are won and lost at your kitchen table.
No doubt.
When everybody else is sleeping, you're up reading horrible things, and we're reading autopsy reports, and you're looking at pictures, and you're imagining how you're going to put it together. That's where those cases are won and lost. If you can't do it there, you will not be able to do it in the courtroom. And then there's a physical training component to it too, because we're working 15, 16-hour days for months on some of these trials. So I do a lot of running and things like that. That's part of it too. And there's times I don't feel like doing it, but you got to do it.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time, not in this one, but in previous episode talking about coronavirus. I don't want to spend our time here talking about coronavirus, but one thing that I am interested in, just to kind of see what your perspective is on it. I know you have a homicide trial coming up very soon. I'm not sure where that's going to fall based on when this episode airs, but do you have concerns about seating a jury?
So we're set to begin a jury trial, first homicide trial since the pandemic began at the arena. We had just come from viewing the facility. We are on the floor of the arena, where we graduated from college together, by the way. But
it was the same day as the plane crash.
It is.
The Bear Creek plane
right.
crash.
It's very surreal to look at this setup. I can't imagine. I'm not aware of any other trials that have ever occurred in an arena. But Mamie Phillips, our deputy court administrator, and Judge Vogue have done a great job of preparing this off-site location. So I personally am not concerned. We've created a situation where people can safely social distance. We can provide the defendant with a due process that he is entitled to, and our system is going to work, and it has been working. We've been back up and running.
What are the logistics? Like, how is that going to be set up? Because you're not going to have that intimacy of a courtroom. I mean, you're going to be on the arena floor. I mean, how's that going to work?
The jury is going to be spread out on one side of the courtroom, and the judge are in the center. The parties are in front of the judge. The jury is on the side in a large area, quite spread out. We have large video screens. We're using the Titantron scoreboard video screen as well for our presentation, so everyone can see, because there's going to be an area for the public to attend too. But it's a little surreal setting it up in that venue. But we're looking forward to getting back to. This is a case, this is the Monca, Joseph Monca is the victim in this case, and 3 of the defendants have pled guilty. One defendant, Mr. Cunningham, remains, and his trial's coming up.
Right.
We're looking forward to getting our system back up and running again, and the courts have been up and running. Judge Vogue has done a great job of getting our criminal system and our civil system back up and running, but I have personally been working through the criminal system for the past 2 weeks, and it's been great.
Yeah, I've heard there's already been a civil trial, a post-corona civil trial, and I know they've put a lot of precautions in place.
And that's not happening everywhere. So
no, but they got a verdict. They were able to go to verdict on it without any interruptions. I think they had to cycle in some of the alternates, but
part of being a trial attorney, as you know, is being able to adapt on a dime. So we'll adapt. We'll be there. We'll put our case on, and we're looking forward to it.
I mentioned at the outset that you're doing some stuff on TV. Investigation Discovery, is that right?
Yes. Well, that's one network where I do a lot of. I've been doing some true crime stuff, podcasts, and some shows. So they've aired on a couple different networks. But Investigation Discovery is one of the primary networks that does that.
That's for people that are interested in true crime. That's probably a good.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. We did a special on Bill Cosby, Aaron Hernandez, Chris Watts, who was a man who killed his family. And we have a very, very good JonBenet Ramsey special coming up on the 25th anniversary of her killing. A very sad situation. So we've met with parties from that case and filmed in New York just 3 weeks ago on a rooftop in the Bronx, which was a great experience, except for my wife, Nicole. We were up till 4:30 in the morning filming in the Bronx during COVID, which was neat, but we had to get it done in one shot. So that's done, and that'll be out in time for the 25th anniversary.
Let's get some personal stuff out there just to let people get to know you a little bit better. One of the questions that I asked on a previous episode, and I kind of stumped the guest, but I don't think you'll be stumped. If you could have a dinner and invite any 3 people from history to that dinner, who would those 3 people be?
Wayne Dyer, who is a motivational speaker who I've been listening to since I started as a prosecutor. He's definitely someone I would love to have dinner with. I'm trying to think who else in history I would love. Well, I would love to have dinner with Al Pacino.
Yeah.
Just to thank him for his body of work, and certainly my dad, who I lost a long, long time ago.
Yeah, I figured that's what you're going to say.
Yeah, I mean,
And so everybody knows, I didn't give you any heads up. I was going to ask you that question, but I knew you wouldn't have a problem with it either.
I'm usually the one asking the question. So, but I mean, certainly my dad, who I would be interested in to hear a lot of what he's been gone since 1985,
right?
And I'd certainly be interested to hear what he thinks about where our family is and the state of the world, those kind of things. And those are the people, and of the 3 people I identified, they're the people that have been influential for various different reasons in my life, and I've unfortunately been unable to share a meal with those 3. I could tell you though, the people that have been most influential in my life, I make a point to have dinner with pretty regularly.
Sure. Speaking of that, we're both Pittston guys. We come, as you mentioned, we come from Italian backgrounds. We love to eat. What's your favorite NEPA spot? If you had to pick a spot to go for it.
Well, my favorite spot is the Gramercy in Pittston. I'm usually not shy about that. I'm there several nights a week. Dinner's great. Everyone sits in their same seat. Not assigned, but quite honestly, that's how it happens. It's old world. The great thing about the Gramercy is it feels like food that your grandmother prepared.
I say that all the time, and I tell people that all the time. I think it's the best kept secret.
And
probably shouldn't be saying it too much, because now we're never going to be able to get a seat there.
Right, and good food takes time. We love to be there at night, and everybody knows everyone in there, and so we spend the evening there. It's great, and Nicole and I and our kids spend a tremendous amount of time there. We love it.
I can't understand that when we have places like the Gramercy, and there's, we could tick off 100 other places in NEPA. I can't understand why we have such gems of restaurants and people go to Olive Garden. I never understood that.
I just think they're not maybe not willing to branch out and try some of the independent places. But
what are some things you like to do in your free time?
I run every day. I spend a lot of time with Nicole and the kids. I have an ATV. I spend a lot of time touring the woods of Greater Pittston. But those are the kind of things. Mostly, though, running, I would have to say, which I run into you pretty regularly.
Yeah,
I run early in the morning, usually about 6:30 along the Susquehanna River. I try to do 5 miles a day because I eat too much and I need to keep weight off. But I like that, and it's an opportunity to kind of de-stress. And I listen to the morning news or whatever when I run and kind of get ready for the day.
And you've been on the cutting edge. We mentioned at the outset you do have your own podcast with Eddie Sirimboli and Greg Fellerman.
Season 2 premieres in about 2 weeks.
And what are some of the topics that you guys are looking to cover or have covered?
Well, we've had our county manager, Dave Pedri, who's one of my dear friends. We've had Sean Walker, another dear friend. Sean is a local pastor, an activist in our community. We've covered politics. Our plan is to have a representative from the leadership of the Republican Party and a leadership from the Democratic Party in the next 2 weeks to talk about the upcoming election and Luzerne County's role again. We did an episode a short while back with our friend Bill Vinsco, and the whole world has changed since then. If you listen to that episode, it sounds like we did it 10 years ago, because that was pre-COVID. It was pre some of the latest developments in the election. So we're looking forward to doing that again. But we try to tackle the legal issues of the day, and we have some fun with it.
Yeah. We didn't talk much about your involvement with Wyoming area. How's everything going there? I mean, obviously, we keep mentioning Corona, and it's getting to the point where it's like, I really don't even want to talk about it anymore, but it's almost like we have to talk about it because it affects all of our lives so much. So how's everything?
Well, in addition to the DA's office, I'm a partner in Pugliese, Finnegan, Schaefer, and Ferentino. And one of my jobs there is I serve as a solicitor of some different entities. Wyoming area, the largest of the entities that I serve. So as a solicitor to a school district, you're available 24/7 to the superintendent and your 9-member school board. So we've had any type of issue you can imagine over the past 10 years we've had. You know, we had a work stoppage, we've had a pandemic, we've had facility closures. But I enjoy that work very much.
Everything's going smoothly over there in terms of coronavirus?
Yeah, so for the most part, our teachers have done a really good job. Our board is being supportive.
And they're virtual, right?
We're virtual right now. Our original plan was to go hybrid, but there were some logistical difficulties in doing that we realized pretty quick. But we're looking forward to getting to a hybrid and getting back to school sooner than later.
Sports are all playing?
Sports are playing with some attendance limitations and precautions that the PIAA has put in place that we're working.
So you're following their guidance, essentially?
Yes.
You're not making it up as you go along?
No, and we defer. In the pandemic, we've been very deferential to the superintendents talk regularly, the solicitors talk regularly. We work together to try to make sure we're being consistent and compliant.
How has it worked over, historically, Pittston area and Wyoming area, it's like Hatfields and McCoys.
Yeah. Being
an East Sider, how has that worked?
In the beginning, it was a challenge, but I think I'm an adopted West Sider when it comes to Wyoming area.
Yeah, you know, the lines are blurring. You know, my fiance, Brittany, she's graduated from Pittston area, lives over on the east side, but teaches and coaches over there. So there's been a lot of blending, I think.
Well, there's a lot of that. A lot of the families, some of what people find to be Wyoming area, true Wyoming area families have deep Pittston roots. So yeah, although they're the Hatfields and the McCoys, a bridge is the only thing that separates us.
Used to be. So what does the future hold for you? Where do we go from here?
I just want to continue doing what I'm doing. I hope to continue to find challenging cases at the DA's office. I've been there a long time. Every year I say it might be my last, but there's that one case that I say, well, when this trial's over, maybe I'll look at it. But I really love that a great deal, so I can't imagine that changing anytime soon. You know, my partners, I'm the youngest partner by 20 years in my firm. They're not going to like hearing that, but it's true. I really enjoy, I work with Paul Pugliese, Charlie Schaefer, and Bill Finnegan. I mean, I care for those guys. They're dear friends of mine, so I can't imagine anything changing drastically other than we're going to continue to serve our clients and work hard.
So we've managed to reduce almost 30 years of friendship to a talk going, I don't know how long we've been at this now, 40 so minutes. So maybe we can get you to come back in the future and we can talk about more specific topics. We kind of bounced around. We hit a lot of different things. We've had a good conversation.
Yeah, I'd be honored to. For those watching, Michael and I used to pretend we had a talk show on our way back when we were kids.
Well, we say
pretty thought-provoking stuff, as I remember.
We say that we went to Dickinson and it was our first foray outside the home, but we came home every weekend.
Yeah. So the way home we would always do a talk show together. Thank God no one heard.
Yeah.
We recap the week.
We're glad that you joined us as we start rolling out this podcast. We had a lot of fun today.
Yeah, I'm honored to be here. I love it. It was great.
Yeah, I think we'll have you back if there's some important legal topic of the day that you could lend your advice and your expertise to, and have some more fun.
Thank you.
All right.